guys got lucky against the Patriots both times.
I defy that statement, sir. I defy that statement vehemently.
And with that laugh, this is Blerdlines. Your man Can. With me as always is
disgruntled Giants fan Josh. Lost 49-17, beat us with a third stringer. Out here acting like y'all won the Super Bowl.
This is now a sports podcast, people.
You know,
airing grievances, and as well as
the professor. I am the main antagonist of this show, and I am going to antagonize Josh with this knowledge that the Cowboys squashed the Giants 49-10.
Wow.
It's a crowning achievement for the Cowboys. They are making it now. They going all the way.
Oh, you don't believe that. You don't believe that.
Of course I don't believe
you. You ain't even antagonizing me with that one. Nobody believes that.
No, I'm antagonizing the Cowboy fans that's listening, though.
Woo! Oh, man.
That's a lot of shots right there. A lot.
The word. Yeah. We might lose some listeners.
They would see that right now on screen there's the Eye of Sauron. So I'm in full Dark Lord mode today.
Wow. Yeah, we might lose some listeners behind that.
And we're back. There's a lot going on in the world of entertainment and sci-fi and comics.
You don't say. Like what, Cameron?
You know what? Shout out to SAG-AFTRA. They have the strike is now over. They're doing the last finishing touches, so folks can get back to work. They've still got a lot to do with the AI and how that's all going to work out. But it's been 9 months? 10 months? No, 9 months.
Somewhere there about.
Yeah.
Since the pair of strikes, yes.
Yeah.
I want to say something like March.
Yeah, since March altogether.
I recently rewatched the first season of Westworld. It's brilliant, but it was a little uncanny because of what's going on right now with the AI and everything. And like you can see, like, it's like, ooh, are we slipping into that society now? Like where AI is pretty much basically everywhere, and we've accepted it. And I'm not.
It's already there. It's already there, running more than we realize.
Of course, yeah. Now that it's being talked about on the consumer level, that just means that military has been around for the last decade or so.
Absolutely.
But probably even longer. But I'm just saying, like, it makes you think when you rewatch things like, again, Blade Runner and Westworld and even The Matrix. You think, we're kind of at that point where, there's just the things that I'm watching people do with these AI engines. It is a little scary. But, someone made a good point. I think it was which filmmaker? He said that AI only imitates; it doesn't create. I thought that's a kind of a good line for. It's someone that we all know, and I'm blanking on his name, but I thought it was a quote that every artist and person who's a little, not just artist, because I think when you think about AI, it's more about a business thing in that supplanting actual writers or actual voice actors or actual whatever colorists or because it's going to affect everything. It's not just even. I'm sure there's even going to be a AI program that will edit footage at some point. So, I think. The idea that it will ever have the same creative tenacity as a human being is probably one that lives in the sort of sci-fi fantasy realm. I don't think it'll get to that point. But then again, who knows?
Who's to say, right? But it's interesting how the debate has unfolded over time, and people's misconceptions about how AI actually works and what it, the ways in which it's deployed. That it's really interesting how people have these misconceptions. They automatically think, Terminator, Skynet, which is hilarious to me. Yeah. But there are a lot of companies that are out there. Just you look at job boards now, like you look at like when I do project based work, so I find myself looking for work on a regular basis, and so what I'm noticing is in the tech side of television and film, companies whose infrastructures I know don't have any AI infrastructure whatsoever are hiring people for machine learning.
Yeah. And it's all the way. That's all the way, especially for engineers right now. If you are,
they're hiring machine learning fellows, and basically they're trying to. With those hires, what they're trying to do is they're trying to figure out how they can leverage AI to support their business model and their workflows. So it's coming. It's definitely coming. Yeah, if I had a kid right now and they had even a slight technical leaning, the first thing I would tell you need to learn, like whatever you can learn about AI, learn it. It's not even the wave of the future. Like I said, there are companies that are hired that don't have IT infrastructure that supports AI in any way, shape, or form. And in most instances, they would have to rework whole segments of their IT support structure in order to begin to accommodate machine learning. And they're already hiring people to try to figure out how to integrate.
Yeah, I think a closer sort of outlook in terms of the fictional realm or TV film is probably Black Mirror and how it shows the applications of our AI. I think that's closer to what you're talking about, Josh, and how companies are leveraging artificial intelligence to their advantage. I think about that. I think it's White Christmas episode where they had the cookie tech where they would insert the cookie into your cerebral cortex and I think it would be there for a week and then it basically copied your consciousness, whatever. And then they take that out and put it into the, Echo type machine or whatever, like Amazon Echo. And so you're, part of you is now in that, but it's automating the entire home. Like it's cooking, waking you up and cooking your breakfast and, things like that. But obviously it can't be, it's not. The irony of that story is that the program starts self-aware and then the operator, well, a person like what you described, someone who knows how to operate or deal with AI, basically, I don't even know if there's a kind word except for oppresses the AI into doing its job and accepting what it is.
Nice.
So it's not even, AI starts off very self-aware. Like, where am I? Why am I in here? And why is she out there? That's supposed to be me and things like that. And so it obviously the whole thing is to freak you out, Twilight Zone style, or Black Mirror style, to be more appropriate. But I just thought the irony was funny that you have a human that's oppressing an artificial intelligence to accept that it is, in fact, an artificially created copy.
Yeah, no, it's kind of crazy because I think that's the next wave of things because everyone's trying to figure out how, because every startup right now has some type of AI implementation of it now. And they're either they're using AI to make something better or, hey, this process is hella horrible. We use AI to clean it up and make it better and blah, 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 blah. And so I think that's going to be that's the way that's going on right now. Also, people are starting to make their own chat GPTs or have chat GPT be their basis, and then they're making their own self-contained one. So it's not connected to the internet. It's only connected to their own server. So you can put all of your proprietary information in there, and it's closed off. It's a closed off network only for your shit, as opposed to out to the world. So yeah, it's kind of crazy. I mean, the actors and everyone else is they're right to be a little spooked. A little spooked is the best way to put it.
Well, I know voice actors were especially spooked because I think there was talk about about using AI for voice acting or voiceover work for certain things, but a lot of people spooked.
Well, and rightly so, because you can't really, as conspiracy theoristic as this sounds, corporations have proven that they can't be trusted to do the right thing unregulated or without the watchful eye of a union saying, hey, you need to, if you're going to use my likeness, or you're going to use people's images to do these things, then they need to be compensated for that. And you need to get their permission before any of that even happens. Because, part of the thing that I don't think people realize is the reason why actors went ballistic and went so hard body to try to get the provisions that they did in the new contract was because it was already happening. As much as you don't want to be, conspiracy theorists, Skynet is coming. But the reality is there were corporations there were movie studios and television studios that were already saying, hey, we want to scan your body. We want to, we want to get a scan of you. So after you're done filming the scene, we want you to come into this room. It's a special camera that's going to scan, and they'll lie to them. They just outright lied to them and said, why, and came up with different reasons why they were being scanned. They were being scanned so that they could use these actors' images through some sort of machine learning or AI without compensating them, without getting their permission, without any sort of provision in their contracts. I can think of at least 2 or 3 shows where actors said that they were scanned, and they didn't realize until afterwards when they found out what different ways AI can use a scanned image. Same thing for actors that are extras. Is the same deal. Like, they scan these people, they pay them once, and then they don't have to pay them again to use their image. And it's a technically a violation of existing image rights as they existed before, but there are plenty of legal loopholes around it. And that was why actors were so hard body about getting it worked into the deal in more plain and distinct language than it was before.
Yeah. And then, because there wasn't anything in place before, because AI hadn't existed in that way before. And the same thing with writing and streaming, it's just happenstance that they happen to collide with each other, and that they were able to get deal in place, both the writing, both SAG, the Screen Actors Guild, SAG-AFTRA, as well as the WGA, were able to get on, deals that specifically have language in them about addressing our AI usage, as well as AI and I lost my train of thought. They were trying to get the plain English to use that. So because AI and so that we wouldn't so that they would have protections in place, like you said, that so corporations wouldn't screw them out of money and rights. And just AI and streaming, that's what I was struggling to say, came about at the same time. So they were so it's probably good that they were able to get both things into the agreement, because if AI had become a thing 5 years from now, we would probably be right back at the table, or at least whenever the agreement was up, they would be striking again because, AI will be a whole new thing.
And they're probably going to have to address it again in the next, as the technology evolves and how it's deployed and used continues to grow and change. They're going to have to address this again come time for the next contract, because if you remember, the strike in 2008 came about because that was the birth of streaming. And so, that strike was basically because no one was getting residuals for, you run an episode. I think we used this example in a previous episode where we were talking about streaming. Heroes was one of the most watched television shows of that period, season 1, and a lot of the viewership was streaming, and so they attached ad dollars to stream those episodes. They attach ad dollars to stream those episodes, and they're getting so the television station and the production are getting revenue, and not even the production. Sorry, just the television station is getting ad revenue, and these are now other ways that the actor's performance and the writer's the writer's scripts are being used, and they're not getting paid any residuals. And that's how this works. They're supposed to get residuals for any ancillary use of their work, if it's written into their contract as an actor, but almost always as a writer. That's how that works.
Yeah.
So,
the writers usually generally and you're right. That was the reason for the 2008 strike was because of the birth of streaming. And one of the other shows that was big in that time was Breaking Bad, and that was and Mad Men. Those shows really is what paved the way for Netflix to build its streaming platform as it exists today, because they didn't have original content at the time. Breaking Bad, they had all of the episodes online to stream, and they had the deals with AMC, and those two shows really helped Netflix again then come up, then have House of Cards, the Orange is the New Black, and then all those things. So and then binging and all this stuff. So all of that was probably even more so driving to that next strike of 20. Did it start last year? No, it started this year.
No, it started this year. Yeah.
The strike of 2023. So, it's gonna happen again, most likely.
It totally will. I mean, and also people forget that technology is faster than laws are going to be able to go. So this is going to come up again in the next, easily within the next, probably 2 years, honestly, 2 to 3.
Yeah. Alongside whatever other technological advances that nobody accounted for.
Yeah, no, totally true. I think
wait till we start broadcasting in space.
Oh, geez.
Then you're really going to have some trouble. We'll be talking about those cosmic residuals.
Cosmic residuals in perpetuity forever.
Perpetuity. Time is relative up there, so we gotta.
And I would like residuals for the 5 years that it's going to take for any signal to reach the planet Beta Sigma 5 years from now, when Seinfeld reruns reach Beta Sigma, I would like those residuals once you confirm that they received the transmission. Thank you very much.
Well, now that the strike's over and things are starting to I should take this back. Things aren't back to normal, but the release schedules are starting to get reshuffled. So the things that are starting to come out are starting to come out.
Oh, not even starting. Yeah.
Yeah. They're like, okay, now we can start to release stuff. People are hitting, Europe, they've been filming this whole time. So they're fine. but America's like still trying to figure out what's going on, and like, you know, all the turnkey shows are already back in production. All the other ones, that's
why House of Cards. I'm pretty sure it was announced that it's coming back in.
It is
the early summer. Not House of Cards, House of Dragon. I'm sorry,
House of Dragon.
I said House of Cards. I meant we were talking. I mentioned House of Cards earlier, so it was still on my House of the Dragon, HBO's Game of Thrones prequel series or prologue series.
Well, they never stopped filming because they're a different. They're BAFTA. They're a different.
That was my point. That was my point. Because of a good chunk of their production is not a part of American unions. They kept working and they kept going, but the thing is, the writers were a part of WGA.
Okay.
So I do think they had somewhat of a pause, but I don't think it was as long. I think, especially once the writer strike was over, the writers were immediately able to go back to work. I mean, I think it was ratified almost immediately. So, but I don't know. I don't know if that is 100% true. Got to double check it, but I'm pretty sure there was no talk of them having significant delays. So they probably will be having their season 2 premiere sometime next year, as opposed to
it's on time. As far as I know, it hasn't. I didn't read anything about delays. It's still on schedule, as far as I know.
Yeah, I mean, all those actors are part of BAFTA, and I don't think there's any American actors on.
Nope, not a one.
On House of the Dragon, but
so much so there was at some point there was a statement issued by BAFTA basically letting all of their rank and file members know that, you know, it's cool if you express solidarity, but under no circumstances are you allowed. So apparently their union does not allow them to strike at all. Like there's no. I think it's British law. You cannot, if you're unionized, at least certain unions. I don't know if it's across the board, but BAFTA specifically, you cannot strike if you're a member of that union. You can express solidarity all you like till you're blue in the face, but you will not be striking with them to express solidarity. So that was never even an option to be a thing.
So with that being said, now that we have the ball rolling, right? You know, a bunch of stuff's been playing out. You know, we got to see, now we get to see all the shows that got held back before the strike. We got a couple of overlaps and that kind of thing.
Here comes Dune, baby.
Yep. And so I have not watched anything. Been traveling, work, blah, 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 blah. You guys have. So we'll kick this part off of one man review separately and figure out one of you guys can go first and what you want to talk about.
After you, D'Angelo, the professor speaks first.
Well, thank you. You're a gentleman and a scholar.
Don't let that spread around.
I think I'll start with Gen V, because I watched Generation. For a little background, Gen V is the spinoff. Properly, it is a spinoff of The Boys on Amazon Prime. And the reason I say it's a spinoff properly, well, I'll get to that. But it basically is a coming of age story of about 4 or 5 Supes who are attending Godokin University, which is basically like the school where the university for Supes. These Supes are the ones who eventually joined the Seven. So they at the very beginning they talked about A-Train, and you saw Jesse Usher's cameo and Maeve and all of those people. I went into this. There's 8 episodes, first season. I went into this with absolutely no expectations. In fact, I would say that I watched this literally just on a whim. Because at first I thought, The Boys is fine. It was cool in the first season, but there's only so much of that kind of nonsense you can kind of stomach after you kind of just feel, you just think you know, what am I doing here? But still always been entertaining, the boys. When they are at their worst, when they're leaning heavy into the racism and stuff like, I didn't think they did a good job of that. But in this series, however, it's a way different. And so the story is the main character's name is Marie Moreau. She's one of the main characters, portrayed by Jazz Sinclair. And her power is she's a I was going to attempt to give it a fancy name designation. I'm gonna try. She's a hemoglobinesis.
Wow.
That's right. She's a bloodbender.
Yeah.
She's bloodbender. Yes. Thank you, Cam. That is
very well said.
Yes, she's a bloodbender. And so when you first see it in the very beginning, when they introduce, first of all, this is very much, it hits all the targets of what you want in a young adult story, in an origin story for a potential superhero or an ironic superhero, if you will. And perfectly kind of setting itself aside from the boys and how the superhero characters are introduced in that story. So from the point of view of Marie Moreau, she has a tragic accident where her powers accidentally caused the deaths of her parents. And she's shipped off. She has a sister, and her little sister witnesses this, so they're separated. She goes into the system, and obviously now that they know she has power, she's given over to Vought, and Vought has their little orphanage system where you go from their orphanage to Godokin, or as they reveal in this show, you go to a place called the Wood if you're too crazy and you're a soup. And so Woods and its purpose is a big part of the storytelling. So I won't go too deep into that because I don't want to spoil it, because I think this is worth watching. Honestly, it's better than the last 2 seasons of The Boys. Oh, Josh, you watched it too. That's right. So this won't be a one-man review.
Oh, word. Yeah. I didn't think about that. Yeah.
I didn't think about it either. Yeah.
I thoroughly enjoyed it, and I watched it at your behest.
I told Josh, I said, go ahead and watch this.
Well, by the end, you were like, yo, you need to watch this. And need is not something you ascribe to too many shows. So when you said that, I immediately began watching.
I don't. And
it was
yeah, go ahead, Josh. What do you think?
It was solid. It was I mean, it's a little backloaded. Like, I feel like they saved a lot of
this.
Yeah, it's a little backloaded. They saved a lot of the sort of plot twists and visual goodies for the last probably 3 episodes, I would say. But you know, once you accept that, it's, you know, it is a way to tell a story, and it doesn't necessarily suffer for it. It's a matter of, I would have liked more action throughout, as opposed to it needed it, because it's very much story driven. It's very much character driven.
Yeah.
And it gets there. You know what I mean? Like, it doesn't suffer horribly for the lack of action. I was fine with waiting until the last episode for all the big effects and all the big fight scenes. It was cool. It was a good add-on. It was a great add-on that dovetailed very nicely out of where you sort of leave off with the last season of The Boys, and then dovetails back in the last episode. It bookends very nicely.
So nice. The thing is, going back to the action part, they focus less on they make you care for these characters, these specific characters. So these are kids who have superpowers, and they're not assholes like the ones we see in The Boys yet.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing that I heard about that before. There, like, one of the things I would say, the biggest difference between The Boys comics and The Boys TV show is in the TV show, they make the soups have some type of a little bit more depth, so you might care for them. Yeah. So, like, there's a reason, humanity. There's a method to, there's some humanity and there's a method to the madness. Same with The Boys. The Boys, there's each person has a little bit of something that kind of makes you care. And then for Gen V, the thing that overall I'm hearing is, like, you actually care about what happens to these characters as opposed to everyone just being an asshole and they're doing wild stuff.
Each episode is kind of, it reinforces that the idea of good and bad, good or evil, these moralities are often more gray than they are clear cut. And I think that is a thing that pushes through the storytelling of Gen V season 1, because as you're learning more about these individual players and how they fit into this world, you care about what's happening to them as you're watching it. You know, one of the things that happens in, I think, the first episode is the character Andre, who is he's the only black male superhero in the cast, and his father was a member of the Seven. His name's Polarity. They're the Magneto of the story. I don't know if Polarity was in the comic book or not, but he accidentally kills a girl while he's trying to show off his powers at a party. And that becomes a whole thing, and how they goes about cleaning it up. It made all of those little story steps that were building toward that end made you care about those characters. So when you got to that payoff, you were all invested in what happened to them, what was going to happen to them. And so I brought up Josh bringing up The Boys, and I said earlier that this is a true spinoff because this is existing. This story is being told adjacent to the main narrative of The Boys. This isn't before, this isn't after, this is literally at the exact same time. And I didn't know that was the case before I started watching the show. And like Josh pointed out, they perfectly I hadn't seen it done that seamlessly since the Captain America, Winter Soldier, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., Hydra reveal, in terms of like how they seamlessly connected one part of the mythology to another, and it just all fell into place. I'm being very vague because I don't want to spoil it, because again, I do think that if you like The Boys, and especially if you plan on watching the next season of The Boys, you really should invest in the 8 episodes of Gen V. They are really good. They are really worth it. They keep you on your toes. I actually look forward to the new episodes each week because the story
we're past spoiler zone. You know, this is a couple of weeks now. It's been out.
Yeah.
You can spoil away.
No, but I think in general, I would say, like, you know, I've been hearing the gist of most of the stuff, and it's pretty dope. I think a lot of people are saying kind of the same, whether, like, you know, it is a far cry from, you know, regular old, The Boys, which is like the shock and awe, kind of the gross out, kind of the everyone's an asshole type of thing. And so this one has a little bit more depth, a little bit more heart, where you're like, oh, I actually care about these people.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I care about them, even though sometimes they could be pricks too. But they aren't. You introduce them to them through their humanity first. And also, one of the good things is that The Boys, the things that have already happened on The Boys are consequential in this show. And that was a big deal for me. So, like, you don't find this out until later into the story, but the main antagonist, her motivation is largely due So basically, she's the female Billy Butcher, and she's upset and wants to enact genocide against Supes because of Homelander's. Because Homelander in season 1 with the plane, her husband was on the plane.
Consequences. There we go.
Yes. So the stakes in this show feel like there are stakes that feel like there's gonna be, they mean something, even where they leave you with the characters and the cameos. And I'll just go ahead and say it, the cameo throughout, right? And they did it right. So each cameo is a bigger character from the boys than the next. So you already know the finale, who's going to be in the finale, most likely.
Yep. Exactly.
And what I love is first it was him and then it was him, and the way that those scenes played out. So first you get Homelander, then you get a mid-credit scene with Billy Butcher delivering his famous "What a bunch of cunts," and it's one of those scenes that could easily be like, oh, they just wanted to throw him in there. But if you watch the whole season and you know where he's standing, you know what that might mean for Billy Butcher and what was going on there. And the fact that came after we just saw Homelander and where he is, it's amazing. I'm looking forward to The Boys season 4, but say that all to say the Gen V was a surprisingly really well written, well done first season, and a great spinoff. Probably one of the better ones that's actually makes you care about the other show more. Because I think by the end of Gen V, I was more excited for the next season of The Boys than I was before that.
Yeah, I was equally surprised and walked away with very much the same impression. Like, you know, it does what a good spinoff is supposed to do. It augments the overall brand.
Exactly.
While being its own thing, it was absolutely its own thing. It didn't try to be, you know, The Boys 2.0 with like a bunch of kids who are running around doing the things that the Supes and the Billy Butchers of the world are doing. Like, it's not even remotely close to that.
Nope.
Nice.
And it does, it does the job. It does the business, and it does the business really, really well.
And it continues a tradition that the boys have set up where well-known actors get killed by one of the Supes. So this time it's Clancy Brown.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
So I like that trope but it's not just like a random, his death means something, and it's
a catalyst for a bunch of things that come after.
Yeah, that's dope. That's dope. And that makes it just fun to kind of keep that tradition alive too. Mm-hmm. Yeah, because The Boys is on
totally
season 4 now.
Yeah, it's going into its 4th season. It got delayed. Eric Kripke, he said after the strike ended and now the SAG-AFTRA, I think he said that they were in post, but they had to, you know, obviously go through their marketing run and all. So I think he's basically saying that it'll probably be summer 2024, which makes sense to me. Like it makes sense because what they're probably going to do now is try to keep Gen V and The Boys close enough so when one ends, the other one is like, you know, a few months or, you know, whatever away from its premiere.
Yeah, that makes sense. And then Josh, you watched Loki, right?
I did watch Loki. Actually, D'Angelo and I both watched Loki.
Nice.
But,
we both Man out.
Yeah, it was. So this is an opinion that I'm realizing is not quite that popular. As a lot of people are singing the praises of the overall season through and through, and I feel comfortable speaking. I feel comfortable speaking for both D'Angelo and myself in saying we did not walk away with quite the same opinion that everyone else had. And even D'Angelo and I sort of differ a little bit on how that impacted the overall season. I think it was an okay beginning. Is, you know, just kind of like, all right, you know, and it started to get a little better and then sagged in the middle and then came back up again. And in my opinion, while there were some things that happened in the finale, there's some things that they were doing with Loki's character that weren't necessarily all that great and didn't necessarily make the most sense for what they'd established. So I'll just say it because it's been almost a week now.
Yeah.
So a lot of the time travel stuff, really hit D'Angelo the wrong way.
Time travel.
And what's funny is it didn't ruin it for me. It ruined it for D'Angelo, but it didn't ruin it for me. It didn't ruin it for me because I'm accustomed to Star Trek time travel rules. And if you can live with Star Trek temporal mechanics, you can forgive it.
Well, I co-sign that. That's true. That's
that's very truthful, actually.
But my thing was, okay, he's time slipping, but he's time slipping. All right, cool. But now he's also time slipping and jumping to other timelines and other dimensions. All right, well, you're really stretching. It's not time slipping then. Like, call it something else. Yeah. Like, establish it as something else.
Too undefined. It was just too
undefined. Do it more than just the one episode where they did it. You know what I mean? It became a matter of convenience. Now, where he ends up as a result of doing that is still really incredible and a very poetic ending. It definitely pays off his constant line about being burdened with glorious purpose. It pays that off in a really great way. It dovetails into other Norse mythology. Basically, Loki takes it upon himself to do what they've been tasking Victor Timely to do by approaching the loom, popping in basically like a regulator, and then launching it into walking the catwalk up to the launcher that is aimed at the loom, and then launching something into it that will allow it to expand its capacity to house all the branching timelines that are branching out of control as a result of the death of He Who Remains.
Josh, can I pause for a second? I just want to ask a question. Now, how ridiculous does all that just sound? Like, just on paper, how ridiculous was that? All of that sound for unpacking the narrative. I'm sorry, I just don't say that.
Ooh, that's hilarious, and also very true.
Yes, it's a lot.
Yeah, that's kind of
so. There's a device that controls all of that holds together all of time and space in every universe, every multiverse that ever existed.
I like to say that this is the point in the writer's room where I'd be like, "Nigga, you crazy."
Yeah, kind of.
Somebody had some nose clamps, as they say on It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. Some delicious nose clamps.
Because they basically, someone sat in the writer's room and said, okay. So there's gonna be a thing that holds all of reality together, right? It's a loom and it holds it all together. And so what we're gonna do is we're gonna have Victor Timely already create something based on his readings of the TVA guidebook, which he created, but not really.
It's a paradox. It's a
he's gonna create it.
So one day he's gonna create something based. I'm not even gonna try.
Don't do it. I was gonna say I just ran it through in my head, having watched it, and I don't want you to do it. Yeah. But
it's a paradox. Just to say that
it's a paradox. Yeah, he wrote the book, but Ouroboros, who is like the technician for the TVA, wrote the guidebook, but he wrote it based on Victor Timely's intervention
theories and his
theories and his intervention. But they travel back in time and drop the book off to Victor Timely, who is now inspired. Yeah, who is inspired by the same book that he inspired. It's just, yeah. So yeah. Anyway,
here it is, Josh. Here it is. So Ouroboros had the TVA guidebook that Victor Timely wrote. That book was then taken back into time and given to a young Victor Timely. But no, no, Ouroboros wrote the book based on
the concept of Victor Timely. Yeah.
Of the concept of Victor Timely wrote. And they took that book that Ouroboros wrote and they gave it to young Victor Timely, who was now inspired by his own work, and then created. Hey, see what I'm saying? You go down that rabbit hole. Leave it alone. Yeah, you did.
I told you to leave it. I'd already worked it through in my brain. I was like, I'm not saying all of that.
That just sounds.
It's entirely too convoluted.
Yeah, it's like I think if I watched it'd be fine, but Jesus, it's one of those things where like you have so many people in that room that can tell you like, doesn't this sound kind of crazy?
And so we're stretching the will and suspension of disbelief at this point, and especially because time travel is already just fuck shit crazy, and half the time is not well thought out as the storytellers believe when they pull all of that convoluted shit, pour that convoluted BS into the storyteller. They think that they've now figured out a real cool, sensible explanation of how time travel might at least be passable, but then it's just like none of this makes any sense, and now you're confusing time travel with the multiverse. Which is what this phase is supposed to be about, by the way.
Right.
Yeah.
So they go ahead and they do the thing. Loki realizes through his combination of time slipping and multiverse slipping, which again, just it's a poorly established ability they have. He eventually realizes that it isn't Victor that needs to go to the loom and corral all of this before all of reality falls apart and disintegrates. Loki realizes it's him that has to, now that he's figured out how to control the time slipping and the multiverse slipping, he now realizes that he's the one that has to use that ability to sort of corral all the different timelines. And he becomes, the Norse, it's basically the Norse tree that's like the source of all time and space and life. Yggdrasil is what it's called. It's
Yggdrasil. Yeah, I was gonna say it starts with a Y. Yeah.
He's like the he that remains or whatever.
He's the new he who remains / Asgardian life tree.
Ah, well, that's cute.
All of it is except
in my opinion. So this is where D'Angelo and I differ. I think despite okay, go. I'm sorry.
Hold on. I was just gonna say that basically all of that does not explain how. Because here's the thing: they fail. That Loki does get the loom, or no? Victor Timely succeeds after so many of these sort of. He fails, and then now he has to go back, and then he got to go back further. Or it wasn't quick enough. So they go through this montage of using the time slipping power to go back to more moments before, so that they can have enough time to actually succeed in this loom business. But
there's one instance where Loki has to go back, and then he realizes he has to study quantum physics in order to figure out how to explain it. That was great. And so
that was great because it took him. He had to go back a couple of centuries.
He's like, how many years would it take me to learn all of this? He was like, a long time. He was like, how long? Like hundreds of years? I don't know. Like, I mean, it's quantum physics. It's not something you can learn. And so Loki goes back several hundred years and then comes back and basically is talking shop with Ouroboros and the rest of the crew. That was pretty funny.
What I was going to say, what I was leading to is that the multiverse, what ends up happening is that they realize they can't control the timelines and they are spiraling out into infinity, which is basically the multiverse. Now, why I have a problem with that is because the multiverse exists in itself outside of time and space. Like it's an entirely, if you're talking about timelines, multiverses are based on, or the concept of it is based on probabilities. The probability that this person will make a different decision if faced with that, and that creates an entire faced with that same choice again. For example, go to the military, don't go to the military. And whichever choice you didn't make has spiraled off into its own universe. That's at least how I've grown to understand how multiverses work. But this confused everything. Like it combined the idea of timeline. So this sacred timeline BS with basically just them trying to find a fancy convoluted way of saying Earth Prime. I mean, what the hell? Like, I just don't understand where they're going with this multiverse versus time travel thing. It's not making sense. And as Josh said, it's convoluted. Now, there are some things in this season that were good. I thought where Loki's character ends up, as Josh mentioned, is good enough to not come back for a third season. That should be the end of Loki's story arc in the MCU. No more.
Or at least on that show. Yeah, I agree.
No more. I think that's all we need, because the more you try to tell more stories or use him in another movie, yes, if he appears in another movie, if there's a reason for him to do it, then fine. But no more big stories involving Loki as a key character. It can't be, because he's reached that point, as you pointed out, Josh, where he has finally found this the burden of glorious purpose has finally landed on his shoulders. So it's everything that he didn't, it's everything that he wants and everything he doesn't want, because truth be told, Loki didn't want to be alone.
Yeah, he didn't want it. He wanted it, but he didn't want it this way.
No, and so now he has it that way, and it reinforces a trope, a thing that they established early in the season, which is, or in last year, which is he always loses. And in this situation, it was the same thing. He won, but he also lost. He won't be in the lives of these people that he's grown to like and care for and know them as friends, because he has to keep their timelines intact and all this time travel BS.
Which I don't have a problem with. You know what I mean? Like, I think it works because it's his. He is Sisyphus. You know what I mean? Like, he's cursed to push that boulder up the hill, only to have it roll back down on his ass every single time. And I think the beauty of that finale, in my opinion, the beauty of the finale
is, though, you
it's a bastardization, to be sure, but I like where that leaves him. You know what I mean? Like, he got what he wanted, but not the way that he wanted it. And I agree with that. That boulder rolls back down on him yet again. You know, it is a version of that.
So, Cam, ask this question. I'll answer this question before you ask it. Is it worth your time to watch it? And in my opinion, no.
Well, it could have been 2 episodes.
What's funny is people said that about the first season, because you could watch Loki and you could not watch Loki and it wouldn't affect any viewing, watching of anything else in the MCU stuff that you watch.
Well, that's everything. Now that's everything since Endgame. Like, nothing that we've seen so far has actually mattered. Nothing.
So I slightly disagree with that about season 1, because I think meeting He Who Remains in the end is a good dovetail is a good dovetail to who Kang is.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
I didn't have a problem with that.
Well, it was in theory till we actually met the Kang that they offered up, and it was like a popcorn fart. So I'm still waiting on this dangerous individual that he who remains.
Yeah,
and went to Loki as this big threat. If he died,
and what's interesting,
I haven't seen that.
Here's the interesting bit. This could be the out that Disney needs to not move forward with Jonathan Majors.
Yeah, that's what the initial rumblings were of lately.
Absolutely.
They made it open ended enough that if they say, for instance, Jonathan Majors fucks up and whatever, and they couldn't go forward with them, they gave themselves a way out. And then, but since recently, Jonathan Majors actually isn't so bad now. So, yeah.
Well, also, but he's on trial, and
it's still on trial.
Yeah, and it is interesting symmetry that open ended we could proceed with him, we could not proceed with him. Finale for Loki lands the same week that he goes to trial. Or that they announced that he's going to go to trial. Excuse me.
Yeah, because they had an off comment about Kang.
It wasn't off. It wasn't off. It was pretty blatant.
Well, it wasn't blatant that he fought an Avenger and died. They didn't.
No. It wasn't that, but it was the 616 adjacent commentary from Mobius. So there's a line, Cam. There's a line.
What I'm saying about that line is that line does not say anything to a person who doesn't understand what that means. Like,
totally. Yeah, it's definitely
what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. You know that because you are a Marvel enthusiast and you know the knowledge of the lore. But a general person just watching Loki because they watched the last season and all that stuff, they might have just been like, oh, did he just reference what happened? I don't think they would.
No, nobody caught that. I'm sure the average person did not. But so there's a comment that once everything's done and Loki takes over, he corrals all the timelines and basically sits in the chair of He Who Remains. Literally physically holding all the multiversal timelines together. They're back in the TVA. Everybody's, Mobius is at his desk, and they're doing like a sort of a status check on what used to be the Loom and is now, I guess Loki holding everything together. And Mobius goes, there was a Kang event in a 616 adjacent universe, but we squashed it. Like, it's been handled. He's not a problem.
I see.
So
he said, but he was dead. He's dead now. Like, that's basically the way it was.
And then they closed the loop on the Victor Timely character as a kid who never gets the TVA guidebook in this version of the events that happened.
Nice.
So basically
they basically made it a way so that if they were going to write him out, they could do it without too much.
I personally think that's them writing him out quite softly.
I mean, honestly, unless they're not gonna go with the Kang dynasty and they're gonna go somewhere else. But here, as I pointed out to Josh, the MCU can go wherever they want right now because they have not established a single goddamn thing that actually makes sense narratively. Like, they have not established a single goddamn thing that actually makes sense for a continuous narrative. And so,
yeah. And I was forced to agree
by their own admission, they had only went down that road of Kang because of Jonathan Majors' performance in Loki. So if that's the case, then they probably did close the loop, no pun intended, at the end of Loki. And is only appropriate because that's where it began, was with his performance. Because originally, even the He Who Remains character wasn't going to be a Kang variant. And so it all comes back to so it almost makes sense that they would do that. And like I said, I think their salvation lies with the X-Men.
I agree.
Amen.
And with the Fantastic Four and with Blade and with some of the stuff that is on its way, but they're trying to figure out a way to bring it in because right now the Marvel Cinematic Universe is looking like an old, worn out tire. Like it's the tread is gone, and it's falling off very fast. And now they're in a situation where, like with the Marvels. Maybe this is a segue. You have another Terminator Dark Fate situation where, despite that this is possibly a good film, a good outing, the fans, for the many reasons, have singled this one out as the moment that they're going to send a loud message to the MCU.
We're done.
We're done. We're not gonna just pay for mediocre to bullshit. And even though that may not be what that movie is, but all the movies are going to suffer because of that. And I use Terminator Dark Fate because we talked about that. Terminator Dark Fate was actually a good movie. It was a good Terminator movie. But because we had just had Genesis and Salvation and Terminator 3, everybody was just fucking tired of it. Just wanted it to go away.
Yeah. No, you're right. You're right. You know what, Josh? I'm gonna save your Marvels conversation because we're at a good solid hour. So I think you can do a separate. You know what? I might just go ahead and check it out probably when I go to California.
I might go see it too. I was thinking about I might go see it.
I will.
We do things for the pod. We do things for the pod.
Well, so the pod notwithstanding, it's a good movie. It's a very good movie. I'd say go see it.
And I also want to support Nia DaCosta. So
yes, you do. Yes, you do.
And this is women on this pod. So yes, we do.
And if I may invoke Other Cam, shout out to Other Cam. If I may invoke Other Cam for a second, this is one of those instances, in my opinion, where you're supporting someone Black who has created art that's good, and you're not just supporting them because they're Black. Like, Black person made thing, I'm gonna go see it, even though it might be kind of janky or whatever, but I'm gonna go see it because she's Black and you got to support Black. This is not that. This is absolutely not that. I agree with you.
And you know what? I'll give you my reasons why I support Nia DaCosta. One is her Candyman film is excellent. Is one of the best horror films in American horror films in the last 10, 15 years in terms of American produced and all that stuff goes. And secondly, this is clearly her one for the meal. And that's why I'm bummed out that the box office returns are not going to reflect, at least not yet, what the quality of the film. And the irony of that is that because they went for quantity for so long, then now we arrive here where we finally got one that's decent, one that's good, similar to the Guardians of the Galaxy. You have one that stands out, and now because folks are tired of it, the box office don't reflect that, and that's a bad deal for Nia DaCosta and for Teyonah Parrish and even Brie Larson. I was saying to Josh, people blame her and get after her, but think about how her character was introduced into this story. She wasn't introduced as a character that we were asked to care about, not like Tony, not like Thor, not like Cap, who went on a 10-year journey. We had a baseline of what those guys want and what they would fight for, and each time it would be redefined a little bit, but it was always that one thing that made us like them. With her, she was introduced as an idea, as a voice for certain gender and identity politics, that's fine if you have those as things, but we want to know the human being, the character first. And that's not Brie Larson's fault. And then
shooting a lot of the writing stuff. Yeah, you're right. Because I think that's the thing too. Going into it now, where the early reports from Marvel, just in general, people are like, "Yeah, it's actually pretty good." But you're right. And for Nika, I think for her, Nia Costa, she's actually pretty smart because she was kind of like, "All right, well, let me get my Marvel movie done, and then I'm gonna move on." Right. And I did it. I got my bag, and I can keep moving.
Yeah. And I mean, it worked.
She can handle a big budget film.
Right. Yeah. And it's listen. It's one of the, in my opinion, it's narratively tight. The pacing is solid. It doesn't waste a ton of time. As a matter of fact, there's no wasted screen time, in my opinion. There are things that you would probably
said the runtime was like 1:45, 1 hour 45.
Somewhere there about there's no wasted screen time. And I mean, I'd be remiss if I didn't also mention that Iman Vellani, if you liked Miss Marvel, then go see this movie, because she's exactly as good as she was in Ms. Marvel is exactly as how good she is I'm
gonna watch that because
she's so fun.
I really did like Kamala Khan in that Marvel Avengers game. I enjoyed playing as her character. She was great. So I'm gonna check out Miss Marvel.
It's fun. Yeah, Miss Marvel. Yeah, Miss Marvel is good. It's perfect CW teen like MCU, and it's like the casting's well done. It's fun. It's nice and breezy. Doesn't do anything crazy.
No.
And I think they did a good job of just like they did a good job of making a teen MCU show, and I think that's what they were kind of going for, make sure like they hit all the authenticity bits too. So yeah.
Yeah, well, they need to.
It's a rock solid show.
The MCU. This just real quick. Another reason that this stuff is blowing up in their face is because they've been doing this stuff the wrong way. It's disingenuous. Captain Marvel was a response to Wonder Woman.
Yep.
And the fact that, and the criticism of the fact that they had not had a solo female hero movie in 10, 15 years that they had been going strong. They didn't even try.
Yeah.
So, and
they didn't even try.
Shouldn't have bed the whole time. And then DC shit the bed all over that decade with their movies. But they produced a really quality Wonder Woman film. Granted, if you know the comics, you know that Diana of Themyscira is much more likable than Carol Danvers. But in terms of character, but Carol Danvers is also a military person. Like she's disciplined. There are things that are likable about her, but they just didn't give us that. They didn't give us any of that. They didn't give you any.
And so they do a successful job. They do a successful job of giving you those things in this movie. They give her a personality. She bounces well off of Teyonah Parris and Iman Vellani. It just 360 degrees from, and they explain a bunch of things about the time gap while Carol was away and why she was away. Like Nia DaCosta filled in. I can tell that the Marvel guys probably did what they do. And then she was like, no. We need to explain this. We need to explain that. We need to make her, we need to make her say, these are the reasons why I was doing this. And this is what was happening when. They do a really good job of filling in exactly those blanks that basically didn't make a whit of sense between
Captain Marvel and the Avenger movies.
Yeah. Well, not even just the Avenger movie, because in the Avenger movie, she kind of shows up at the end, wrecks shop, and then she's out. Like she stays for the funeral, and that's the last time you see her.
But that's not my point. She had been nowhere to be found, and then all of a sudden Nick Fury is contacting her, and all the crises that they've had, he didn't think to contact her then. So that's what I'm saying. That is when you go outside of character storytelling development and you just shoe in and putting something there because whatever you want it to work. That's why her appearance in Endgame doesn't doesn't fly because I'll just say it, a lot of people believe that fight that she had with Thanos should have gone to Hulk because it would have bookend their fight, just like in the fact that he lost in the fight against Thanos, the same way Tony, Cap, and Thor got theirs back in because they got their ass, and Thanos traumatized all of them. I think that was the big thing, but we don't. But he wasn't involved in that story, and they didn't do.
And Bruce Banner is the poster child for trauma.
Yeah, and also like exactly. You said, because they didn't close that loop, you get an unsatisfying thing with Hulk where it's like, oh, so I guess he's just a bitch now. All right, well, I guess that's.
And then She-Hulk ends up not making a bunch of sense as a result. Yeah, his appearances in She-Hulk are just like whatever.
Yeah, me and Josh talked about this where you could have had all of those moments that we had in feel good moments that we had in Endgame. But after, because I think when she wrecks, you have her come in, she wrecks the Thanos' ship, and then you have and then in that part you have Hulk get that fucking gauntlet and say, I want him come after it now. I want him to come to me.
You could even still have the moment where she tries to pull it off and comes close as like an escalation of like, all right, we're getting close. We're getting closer. We're closest as we're going to get. And then, he grabs the gem and knocks her away. And Bruce is the one who's like, we're not going to be able to pull this off unless I do it.
Yeah.
So it makes it so that he's the only one. And you have the redemption moment from the first film where he gets the piss beat out of him.
Oh,
there's no reason not to redeem that. There's no reason except laziness.
No payoff.
Thanos beat him. Thanos, they going at it. He's still Nerd Hulk. He's still Nerd Hulk. He's getting his licks in. Thanos is clearly a better fighter and he's beating his ass. And then we get the moment that everybody been wanting, which is a raged out fucking Hulk that just destroys everything, just smash it, just goes ham. And, honestly, I think they probably didn't go that far because then, how does Thanos get out of that? And then we have the Tony moment. So I understand why they didn't go into that, but I think there could have been room for that, even if Thanos was able to
absolutely
once again.
There's room for it, and there are a bunch of ways that you could have done that. Still, that where you still end Tony, and you still get the payoff of the Hulk at least getting a couple of shots in, if not beating him outright.
Yeah, because he would grab.
You could have done a thing like what they did with the. Good, sorry.
No, I was going to say that's why I mentioned not to give Captain Marvel that moment, because if it's a moment where Hulk beats his ass and knocks and gets the glove out of his hand for a moment, but then Thanos is able to grab the glove and now he's got the fucking Infinity Gauntlet, and then that's the only way he can get Hulk off his back. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
It's because he's got all the thrust of the Infinity Stone, and then as he's getting ready to do the snap and enter Tony to do his thing.
They're tussling, and he's holding. He's got he's now fought him to a standstill. He's got the gauntlet, so he's powered up a little bit more. So they're tussling, and then Tony runs over and does the thing that he does. He smacks back the Hulk. He smacks back Tony, but Tony's already got the gems, and then he does the snap anyway, and it kills him.
Well, he would have had to smack down Hulk first, and then while he's smacking Hulk down, that would have been Tony's moment to slip in and do his thing because he only used the nanites to take the stones out of the gauntlet. He didn't actually take the gauntlet.
The gauntlet, right? Exactly.
My point is, because you had that moment with Captain Marvel, and again, this is not me saying that Captain Marvel should not have been in the movie. It is me saying that moment, narratively speaking, would have been way better payoff for the 10-year story arc that they told if it had been Hulk in that moment because he needed that redemption. She didn't get her ass beat and traumatized in an Infinity War. That didn't happen to her. But we had seen, and then Josh brought up the point about how they didn't pay off the whole thing where Hulk was saying that Hulk, but Bruce said that sometimes Hulk had his fucking hand on the wheel, like he knew what he was doing. We saw that in Ragnarok when he was clearly conscious of the things that was going on. He didn't want Hulk, Thor to leave. He did beat Thor down, but wasn't trying to kill him. Like it was those things that said that these two can live synergetically, but one personality is trying to dominate the other. And so the smart Hulk was supposed to be like, okay, they figured it out, but the fans didn't want you to just figure it out. We want him to still be the Incredible Hulk. We want to see
and so the thing that D'Angelo mentions, like when we were bouncing back and forth how it could have worked. What I was saying was, to pay off like he mentioned, to pay off the line in Ragnarok, you could zoom in on the Hulk, like the Hulk Bruce has finally made the decision. You know what? I think I need to let him have control in order to make this happen.
Yeah.
And
he lined up with Thanos.
So you zoom in on his brain, you zoom in on his head and then into his brain. And in his brain is an image of Bruce and the Hulk both having their hands on the steering wheel, the exact way that he said, in a car. The car's driving and they're both driving and they both have their hands on the steering wheel. And Bruce looks over at the Hulk. Hulk looks over at him, and Bruce slowly lets his hand off the steering wheel. And the Hulk looks at him, and and again, you pay off Avengers. He goes, Hulk smash. Hulk smiles at him. Car starts moving faster. Zoom back out, and you come out. You zoom back out through one of his eyes. His eyes now raging with energy, blazing with energy, and he's turning into a bigger version of the Savage Hulk, and he goes ham on Thanos. You cannot tell me that would not have people jumping out of their seats in the theater if they did that. You cannot tell me that.
Yeah, and it would be a payoff too. Yeah, that makes sense. But I think that you're right.
A bunch of things. It pays off like three movies. It pays off like 3 movies in one shot.
Yeah, but again, that's the problem that we have, right? It's the how are they going to shoehorn this character in, and then some other characters have to get some of the more expensive characters, I should say.
But it's sad on both parts because now, again, I think it's unfair that Brie Larson had this experience as Captain Marvel, something that she should have had a similar experience that Gal Gadot had as Wonder Woman. And, I was saying that comparing the two is like, I don't think it's totally driven by sexism. That's a part of it. Let's not be naive here. But at the same time, I think it's largely because the creative apparatus at Marvel did her wrong. They did not bring her into this story in a way that made sense. She probably shouldn't have debuted until after Endgame, to tell you the truth, because again, you're talking about even Ant-Man, his role had to be minimalist in that story, because they even make a joke of it where Tony's like, our encounter Infinity Stones mean we really mean, by encounter we mean damn near kill. We all damn near were killed by one, and he's like, not me. I don't even know what you're talking about, because it's that one of those funny, clever lines that we all know that the Ant-Man movies and his involvement has not been on the same level in terms of the Infinity Stone as Thor, Cap, and Bruce, and Doctor Strange,
and Thor, right,
and Tony. Yeah. So, but anyway, we can rant all of the mistakes of the MCU.
Right.
It's a whole separate podcast.
I know. I think bringing all that up just highlights the sad story of the Marvels, which is here you have again one of the examples of an actual good MCU movie, and yet now after all this time, where Ant-Man 3 made all that money and Doctor Strange made all that money, and all those ones that were not as good made all the money, and now here we are. Everybody's tired, but there's a good film.
Well, and that's unfortunate. It's unfortunate on a bunch of levels, right? Because the last phase, the last phase really didn't do anything to sort of properly set up any of the things that are set up that are supposed to come later on. You spent the better part of 2008 to what year did Endgame drop?
2017. Yeah, 16.
2016.
That was Infinity War. Infinity War was 2016, right?
Oh, no.
So then 2017.
It was like 2018 for Endgame.
2018.
I think I was still in New York.
You spent from 2008 to 2018, 10 solid years setting up all this stuff, and establishing all of these characters. And, this phase does not feel like they spent the last however many years in this post Endgame world setting anything up long term. It felt like just a bunch of individual movies, most of which, that first phase immediately after sort of dealt with the ramifications of Endgame, the loss of Tony, yada, yada, yada. All right, fine. Yeah, and the loss of Black Widow.
Right.
But then, later on down the line, all right, they're gone. And it's sad. Yeah, and it's they're gone, and we're sad, and it's sad, and they're heroes, and there's a mural in Queens somewhere in Peter's neighborhood, and all that other crap. Yeah, sure, great. Now set up the next thing.
Yeah.
No. Yeah. You spent 2 phases not setting up anything.
Yep.
You set up the Marvels to fail, and it's a good movie. It does not. Yeah. It doesn't deserve it, and it even does a good job of pulling Carol out of what we were talking about a few minutes ago, in terms of just, she's wooden. Let's just call it what it is. You don't take advantage of any of the things that Brie Larson as an actress fully has to offer in that movie. That
woman's an Academy Award winning actress.
This is what I'm saying.
Let's not
besmirch her name.
Exactly. Gloss over the fact that this is someone who they were actually
clearly capable.
Yeah.
And I feel like actress. And I feel like this movie Nia DaCosta did a really good job of starting her off where she was in the first film, which is kind of wooden, kind of distant, kind of not, not necessarily playing well with others, and just kind of, disaffected, and moves her into a place of being a much more likable character, a much more personable character. She plays well with others. She's developed. She's the leader of their team. She's developed as a team player, and she's discovering more things about herself as the individual that was Carol Danvers.
So there's this thing called character development then.
I hear that's a thing. I've heard D'Angelo mention it once or twice.
All right. Well, we'll do a proper Marvel's review later, but we'll wrap this one up since we've been ranting for a while. Thanks everybody for listening to us and rant and whatnot, and we will check you guys later.
Peace out.